And I think Dave is on. Dave, are you here?
I'm here.
Hey, Dave.
You guys, go ahead. You guys wanted to talk about another vision.
Another vision. Yeah. It's a good vision and it's a bad vision. It's good once you know it, but it's bad that you know that it's happening. Anyways, maybe I'd get some input. What do you guys believe that you are ruled as? Like if a cop comes up to you, whether they really know it or not, or if you go into court, what do you believe that you're ruled as? Don't know?
What is the question is, what do I believe that I'm ruled as?
Yeah, what are they ruling you as? What are you, as far as they're concerned?
Oh, I'm chattel.
You could use that term, but it's actually more specific and absolutely provable.
Citizen?
Oh, collateral?
Oh. No. Actually, they've used one word to enslave the whole country.
Person.
And there's a few exceptions. I've seen whoever once in a great while and individual once in a while, but it's person. So I think the way to do it is have people pull out their driver's license and then look, and you'll see you have your picture on your driver's license. But when you go into the statute on who's required to get it, it says person. So what we say in court is, when they ask the name, we'll say, well, that's got a vastly inferior status attached to it. The scheme, it's a very old scheme. It's called pretending we're not the people to control us. And like I think I told last time I was on, I had 4 troopers say, whether it's true or not, they didn't hedge about it, said they knew that they were pretending we're not the people to control us. So I don't know if anybody's got pencil and paper out there. They want to write some of this stuff down. It's pretty simple, and we should actually probably have, excuse me, if somebody's really a good graphic artist, just so it looks cool rather than just words on paper, I would say the very top line on the paper, that one halfway through should write a big vertical line, and going up on the paper is superior, and then, of course, going down is inferior. The expression is called the order of things. It's also called the established order of things, and it's also called the natural and proper order of things. And what you want to do is when you're dealing with anybody in government, I'm sure they're not going to want to go there, but you want to find out where they are on the vertical line and where they're claiming you are on the vertical line. And, of course, it would be fraud and nonsense and ignorance or corruption when they don't want to go there with it. So on the top, I would put the order of things, and then under it, the principle that's regulating it is called all jurisdiction implies superiority. So right under that, the Most High is God. And then under God in this country, and you could say under God in the United States of America, is we the people. So the all-encompassing term is we the people of the United States. But what that really means is we the people of every state, meaning we the people of Washington, we the people of Minnesota, we the people of Connecticut, we the people of Florida, we the people of California. It's whatever it says right in the preamble of their Constitution is what I would go by. And everything in law, according to the law, is inferior to the people in this country, other than God, of course. So out of the people comes the Constitution. So that'd be the next line under we the people is the Constitution, and that's obviously a document. It's not a natural person. just a document. The Constitution is known as the form of government. On the Constitution, the three highest entities is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So that should go on the line underneath the word Constitution. And technically, next to the Constitution, say the state, where in one sense the state is subordinate to the Constitution because it's not supposed to be violating it. But the state is an artificial creature, and that's the name of the people. So it's saying, like, we, the people of Alaska, like the preamble, when you go into a criminal case, what it should say is the state of Alaska, which would be composed of we, the people of Alaska. Then below the departments, the highest position is actually an officer. But right under the departments, it would be an office. Like a court is an office under the judicial side. And then you have an officer of the office. So when you're starting at the bottom going up, it's officer of an office of one of the three departments, meaning the legislature, executive, judiciary, of the Constitution, of the people, of and under God. And that's their all jurisdiction implies superiority. And that's what they got to get around to pretend to have jurisdiction over us. And so what they're doing in large part to get where they're going is deception. I don't know how much you guys have studied fraud. Fraud voids everything. And I've got massive case law on fraud. It's both under the state and federal rules for relief from judgments or orders or proceedings under Rule 60B. And if it's the officers of the court or attorneys, any of that personnel, it's called extrinsic fraud, and there's no time limit on it. And what they're doing when you go in there every time is, if you're one of we the people, they're pretending you're not the people. So to know how to trap them with their own stuff, anybody that's ever been to court knows that the first time you show up in court, the very first thing they want to know is your name and date of birth. And they leave out what color you are and where you were born, what state you were born in. Because if you know anything about law, if you're white and born in one of the several states, you're one of we the people. Do any of you know what a citizen of the United States is? Who that applies to?
Newly freed slaves.
Yep, 14th Amendment, the case law like Slaughterhouse, we read that. That was primarily intended for the Negroes and certain other persons of color. Didn't include Chinese for whatever reason. I never saw why, but it just didn't. And a citizen of the United States, as far as I'm concerned, is really a bizarre status. One of the most important things to know is the people created that, just like they created the constitutions. In other words, it doesn't become law until they ratify it or adopt it. It's like impractical for everybody to go into convention and create it, so they send in delegates, but it doesn't become law until the people ratify it, vote on it. And the people created all the amendments that were lawfully created, at least. And so if the 14th Amendment was lawfully created, it was created by the people. So you wouldn't be a creature of yourself. And I do have the case law talking about it. Didn't change the relationship between the governments and the people. It can't, because the people are the government. And the government, if you want to call the legislature and executive and judiciary, that's why they call them the three great departments. Because the servants need you to believe that they're the state and they're the government, rather than they're just the servants in government pretending it's the lawful one. So anyways, what you do is, whether they're identifying you in court, let's just say by a driver's license, and especially if it was some sort of traffic crime or violation, you go right to how they're identifying you, and then you're wanting, if they're not engaged in fraud, they're supposed to be engaged in justice. People didn't empower them to engage in fraud or engage in injustice. And you kind of semi-prove that by, hey, you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, not otherwise. And there's, of course, a ton of case law. That's what they're supposed to be doing in court, is ascertaining the truth to do justice according to the law. And that's exactly what they got to get around in order to get where they're going. And maybe most people don't understand that a judgment of a court rendered without jurisdiction is void and entitled to no respect whatever, which really just means the law can't enforce it or doesn't happen to enforce it. And everybody just goes in there and they waive that because they think they don't know much about it, and they just call your name, oh, yeah, that's me, and don't understand the scam going on behind the scene. Anyways, the driver's license is person. Any criminal, anything they were to cite you criminally is person up here, and any civil jurisdiction is person. And I've got massive court cases on how these statutes are to be interpreted, and it's exactly what happens. Have you guys ever read like the driver's license statute or any of the criminal statutes?
Little parts of them, but I can't stand it.
Anyways, it's real simple. Don't get into any of the other language. It just says person.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's supposed to be, the standard, and I can show you that it's always been this way, it's supposed to be total personal immunity from governmental control unless by clear and unquestionable authority of law. So that's the standard, is the clear and unquestionable. And the backside, or reciprocally, a statute is void, meaning as no law, if it's vague. And so with that, what they're citing, Supreme Court of Alaska citing the Supreme Court of the United States, is the treachery that the statutes conceal what persons are included. Person is a vague term. It's very generic. In one sense, I've seen it cover just about anything you can dream up. I've seen, if you guys have ever seen, like at the law library, this encyclopedia called Words and Phrases. That's one of the things I started studying when I first started studying law, is I wanted to get at, well, what in the heck is this person, getting at the bottom of it? And you'll see even a person, even a dog can be considered a person. And then there's artificial persons. There's natural persons. There's all the artificials. There's a lot of it. Corporations, associations, partnership, trusts. There's all kinds of artificial persons, profit, non-profit. And then the natural, though, is simple, and you need to remember this. Because if they wanted to, if you ever look at any of these statutes, some of them are pretty long. So they could easily put whatever status that it applied to, they could easily just write it in there. See what I'm saying? So the natural persons are alien, meaning foreigner, citizen of a state, citizen of the United States, and like we, the people of Alaska. And they just use that word person, I believe, because they're outside the law, and lawfully they can't apply it to anybody. But it works as, just like they say, they go on to say that words which are vague and fluid may be as much of a trap for the innocent as the ancient laws of Cliglia. So they're just using that as fraud to trap everybody, and then most everybody's brain dead to the law, so they go, you're a crazy person if you think the law doesn't apply to you. Where we can absolutely demonstrate under God and in this country, the supreme law of the land is our mere creature. The legislature is our mere creature. That's our power. The executive is our mere creature that we created. So is the judiciary, all the courts. Everything is inferior to us and an artificial creature in that Constitution. And it's undeniable. So unless you know how this works, and then including other things such as we're the source of power, And you'll see, like in the North Carolina Constitution, where ours says source of government, theirs says sovereignty of the people. That's the way it is in every state. And where ours says source of government, that's the way it is in every state. But we're not just the source of government, we're the source of sovereignty. We're the source of the Constitution. We're the source of the legislature, the executive and judiciary. We're the source of power. We're the source of government. We're the source of jurisdiction. It's all of the people, and we're equals in law. So if you're playing a card game, just say you'd be the King of Hearts and King of Hearts and King of Hearts and King of Hearts, and they're all the same. If you're a citizen of the United States, I'd maybe designate you as a 10 of spades, 10 of spades, 10 of spades. Just your title, what you are, has nothing to do with how smart you are, how good looking you are, how rich you are, or any of that. It's just what you are. And then if you're a citizen of a state, you could be like a 10 of hearts. You're of the state, not of the Fed, just like the citizen of the United States is of the Fed, not of the state, but with that status, if they say they're domiciled, then they're also a citizen of the state. And then an alien typically really is a stateless person. They're of another country is what they really are. But if they are planning on becoming a citizen, then they're giving them what this country is supposed to be based on is freedom. And so they were considering them as citizens of the United States, just like when you're a foreign country that's subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, those are citizens of the United States. But all citizens of the United States, they may not want to admit this, the people in government, like the judges or whatever, but they're actually considered a stateless person because the federal jurisdiction is out of the jurisdiction of any particular state. So you're talking about the District of Columbia, and that's not a state in the sense like California, Florida, Minnesota, and them are. And, of course, the foreign territory subject to the jurisdiction of the United States is not a state. So you're actually considered a stateless person. And a stateless person, I'm getting a little deep here, but that ends up equating to the proverbial man without a country. But anyways, keep this real simple. They're pretending we're not the people because we have such a high status. We have the highest status under God. We have the highest status as anyone in the world. We got the same status as king, queen, czars, emperors, princes, princesses. That's what they are in their dominions. They're the sovereign and supreme power. And we're the only country in the world where the people are this. So they got to get us out of that high status. And then what they're doing, I think like the Bible says, they lay these traps, but then once you figure it out, you can use it against them. It's undeniable what they're doing. You know, when you cite the treachery, Supreme Court of Alaska citing the Supreme Court of the United States, the treachery that they conceal, what persons are included, and do you know what the bigger treachery is? I would call it your get out of jail card free if the statute happened to say who's excluded, so you could show the judge, well, Your Honor, it says right here in the statute it doesn't include the people because of what we are in law. All jurisdiction implies superiority, and we all have all these superior and supreme statuses. See? So if it said it right in the statute, ball game over, right? So then you got to go in, and prove it. Prove how all this works. And, of course, they don't want to go there because they don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But they know. And they typically will, when you assert it right, they go silent or they get up and leave the bench because they don't know how to defeat the truth. See, they got to try to come up with a lie, and they've never been, as far as I know, ever been taught how to overcome all this, the way the law works. So that's our remedy, is these statutes technically do not apply to anybody. We're not hurting anybody, and they're literally committing crimes on us because we have the right to justice according to law and free of fraud. And that's exactly what they got to do, is deny us that to get where they're going and get in this fraud scam where they're pretending we're not the people. So the biggest obstacle almost is overcoming the people's mindset that are ignorant of the law, because if you didn't know anything about this and you were not receptive to the truth, I call it the raving lunatic syndrome, where it's so in reverse of what they've been programmed into believing that you're like got to be a raving lunatic. But I got massive case law on it. I've put this together. I think, Maria, you saw the book I had several years ago, and since then I've got about 1,300 pages, and I actually just segregated the IRS stuff out of it. So I have like 1,000 pages, everything on what trials are supposed to be about, ascertaining the truth, and all jurisdiction implies superiority. Matter of fact, just the other day I found a 2019 Supreme Court case citing all jurisdiction implies superiority. That comes out of the common law of the world. I call it the great universal principle of law. And how are these little servants in government going to defeat it? And especially once you understand, that's one of the things sometimes you need to do in court, is to get these judges to say it under Title 45 or Title 9, just say, are you a public servant under, AS 45, whatever the numbers are on it, and just to let them know that they're the servant, and then who's your master. And that would be kind of an act of insanity here. You're a judge, and you're supposed to be ruling on the law, and you don't know how this stuff works. Kind of like, don't make me laugh. You're unfit to even sit here. And some of the amazing things, one of the things I'm really dying to do in court with somebody is bring in the Constitution and read the preamble, we the people of Alaska, and just that part. And you can cite where it says all political power is inherent in the people. And where's your proof of who is one of we the people of Alaska and who isn't? Because you got a right to trial by jury of your peers. And then who's a citizen of the United States and isn't? They're just letting everybody say they're a citizen of the United States with no proof that they are. And I have the case law, of course, from the Supreme Court of Alaska, citing the Supreme Court of the United States. For over a century, you've had a right to a trial by, if you're the subject, you have a right to trial by jury of peers equals with the same legal status. So you would trap them into that to say, well, excuse me, according to Alvarado versus State, I have the right to trial by jury of my peers equals with the same legal status. So how are we going to determine who is and who is not a citizen of the United States and who is and who is not one of we the people? See what I'm saying? And they don't want to go there. It brings the whole fraud game down. So with all this information, it's very important to understand that as soon as you confront these guys, it's one of the first things you want to do is claim and give them notice that you're one of we the people of Alaska. And sometimes I even have to say, well, what does that mean? So you got to explain to them, I'm the source of power, one of those who is the source of power and the creator of the Constitution. It's like your master. You're the servant, correct? And you took an oath to obey it. So then if there's two of them, even though they may not have a written agreement, they're in concert, they're in conspiracy to violate your rights, and that's a felony. And if they kidnap you, it's even up to death penalty under 18 U.S.C. 241. Or even to coerce you, it's a Class C felony. That's called the crime of coercion under the statutes. If you have a legal right to abstain from something or a legal right to do something and they try to stop you, it's Class C felony for any person to do that. And we're missing a lot of these big things, bringing up in the court what's going on, and they aren't going to be able to deal with it. All the best they can do is try to run you over. And then you want to charge fraud, and if need be, we haven't done it yet, but you could put them under citizen's arrest. Troopers operate under the same as the private citizen under the citizen's arrest. And I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but that's the other important thing, and I'm not going to go into detail at all under that. But what's really going on, they're doing it globally. Everyone in government, as far as I know, they're all private authority. They're all private federal businesses, also known as federal taxpayers. And that's like a question you can ask a judge. You say, I don't know you. Are you a federal taxpayer? You'll see they don't want to answer that. Where if you ask them a few other questions, you'll see they got no problem answering you. But you get to the pinnacles, then they don't want to answer them. So it tells you, you're on to what's going on. And I don't know how many of you guys deal with court, but what I'm doing from here on in, I never used to file hardly any paperwork because they always want to pretend anything you do gives them jurisdiction. but is whether you're in court in person or if you file paper, that's the first thing you say, I'm here under threat, duress, and coercion. Because if you voluntarily appear, then they're pretending they have jurisdiction over you, even though it goes to the word person. Because that's the statute charged, so that's what you're after. Well, what is it? So would that seem like an act of insanity if you're in court before a judge and DA and they're sitting there charging people and they can't even prove who it applies to? Huh? Does that make sense?
It's just like this invisible enemy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that would be an act of insanity, or the same thing. Here's the source of power, and it's right in the preambles, and you don't know who is one and who isn't. You know, like you say, I'm claiming I'm one of we the people. So who is and who isn't? Where's your proof? By clear and unquestionable authority of law. So you got to put these together. And the other thing I do on the fraud thing is be using, like out of the federal oath, if they were doing justice and they weren't engaged in fraud, it wouldn't even be a problem, right? And as long as the question was a good question, there should be no problem answering it. They'll answer the other ones. As long as you stay within the system, if they call it, you know, they'll answer your questions. So anyways, the federal oath talks about, you know, support and defend the Constitution. Here it is, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Why are you dodging this? Why are you avoiding it? I'm charging fraud here and obstruction of justice because you're not ascertaining the truth. So I know the truth will set me free, so you're committing crimes on me instead of doing your job, obeying the law, and making, because what they're supposed to be doing, of course, is what? Securing our rights. That's their whole function, is what it's supposed to be, is to secure our rights. Like out of Blackstone's, who is the preeminent authority on the common law, the public good is nothing more than securing the private rights of every individual. And your private rights are actually, the big ones were called absolute rights, and that goes to the three major things. It's your security, your liberty, and private property. Those are absolute rights, and they were all held sacred, and they are indefeasible and unalienable. That's why the people create the governments. We don't create governments for the opposite of that. We don't create governments to do injustice. We don't create governments to engage in fraud against us, just like a business, the act of insanity. Oh, yeah, I created a business to destroy myself. You know? So it's real important to know that. And then there's, of course, case law on it and everything. But it's real important to know their private authority. So with that, what does private authority have to do? They can't take the law into their own hands, so they can't make the law enforce the law, so they got to get you to consent to everything. Okay? And I actually had, I don't know if I told you before, but, excuse me, I actually got them to admit it down at the court system in Palmer and want to go back and record it with like a spy pen. And this is exactly what I said to the gal, real nice gal. I didn't think she knew, so I didn't record it. I should have, because it worked out perfect. And I was with a friend of mine, and he knew that's exactly why we were there. I was pulling up documents. You can do the same thing in Fairbanks, go into the courthouse on some criminal case and see what kind of documents are after the judgment. And the best I've seen is an order. Well, what kind of an order? What, an administrative order? A judicial order? Order in equity? What? I don't know. It's supposed to be process of law, and the only real process of law that I know of is a warrant. And that's what they issue in criminal for search and seizure, a warrant. See what I'm saying? And I haven't seen them talk about it a lot, but I haven't been on Westlaw for a number of years to try to research a lot, but it was called a warrant of commitment. And after they do a judgment to put you in prison, that's what they should be doing if they were the judiciary. They would do a warrant of commitment, and then if there's something unlawful, you go in for habeas corpus and pull up the authority by which they put you in prison, see? And then that's what you'd be trying to defeat, is that piece of paper, whether the court wasn't right, like it was a pretended court, or even the jurisdictional thing, who it applied to. But anyways, here's what I said to her. So let me say this too, just so people might know and hopefully understand. The law term is called execution is the end of the law. It gives a successful party the fruits of his judgment. So let's just pretend everything was lawful, and whether a case of civil or criminal, all there was a judgment. It just sits there in limbo. And if it was a civil, and I was a jerk, and you won, and you should have won, and you didn't know how to execute the judgment, I could just sit and laugh at you. You'd never be able to enforce it, and you couldn't figure out why the heck I'm not having to pay you, because you never went in for a writ of execution. Okay? So anyways, here's what I said to her. I said, let me ask you a question. In these criminal cases, after they do a judgment, is there any process? Because if you go look in the court rules or statutes, that's the last thing there is a judgment. You know what I'm saying? And she got this huge smile on her face, like she thought it was so cool I asked that. And then she looked down and looked, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, kind of like depressed or whatever, and goes, no. And my friend's eyes bugged right out of his head when she said that. He couldn't believe that he just heard her say that there was no execution after, no process. All the
on
process has to be. Huh?
You're talking about on criminal?
Yeah.
In the criminal?
Yeah. There's no process, and there's like even a statute in each court. All process shall be sealed with the seal of the court and signed by should be by the judge. I think they're trying to stay out of liability, so it's a clerk or whatever. But that's what they put you in prison with, and that's what you'd be fighting on habeas corpus is this, where the hell is this court created? Where has it got lawful judicial power to put anybody in prison? See? And who's your statute applied?
I mean, people are taken away. Are they just doing it verbally? Are they just not having any record?
They just do it with this judgment, and I've seen sometimes judgment and order on it. But it's not process of law. See, if you could get anybody honest, it'd be easy. They'd be just going, yeah, this is a joke. What the hell is going on here? They're engaged in crime, doing what they're doing. Like this just happened in Alaska and everything else was honest, and you get a hold of the FBI or whatever, and they'd have these guys put in prison for what they're doing.
But
and I often wondered if we could get a hold of somebody in the military, kind of a high-ranking officer. I've never bumped into one, just under the sheer fact of the right to know, and that they have, the military intel, that we should be able to find out from them if a court's lawful. And if we could get a written document. I just heard about this once in Colorado. I think they were called the Lawmen, and I don't know if they're still in existence now, but I even called them, and the guy was out, and I talked to his wife, and they said that they had got a letter from the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying they were writing stuff, and then they were bringing that in court, and then they didn't want to screw with them. So whether they did or not, it always hit me. Well, under the right to know, why can't we know what this court is? We want to get it admitted, like Murkowski, saying the court system's not the judiciary. Did you guys ever look that up on YouTube?
No,
Just to hear it?
No, but I will do that, and I'll send it out, too.
Yeah, and I should probably do that on Facebook or something, maybe. I don't know who knows and what people care about, and if they, I don't think most people understand that a judgment of a court without jurisdiction is void, entitled to no respect. It's a threshold question, and without which the court is powerless to proceed. And I can show you it goes back to the 1400s, is made sub law in 1612. So this is no glitch. It's the whole. That's our biggest remedy, is this not waiving personal jurisdiction and being able to destroy them with all the information I got. So just like, for an example, from the Supreme Court of Alaska, I have them saying that in criminal statutes, the precise use of language is particularly important. Precise. See? So that's just that. Then I've had, and it's always been this way, that statutes are strictly construed. All it says is person. So what persons? It don't say. Okay? So anyways, they'd be making it up. Whatever they say, they're just making it up, so you got to know to hold them right there. Bullshit. You got no authority to overrule the Supreme Court of Alaska or the Supreme Court of the United States. They say it's treachery that the statutes conceal what persons are included. So does that mean that they don't say who they apply to? They're concealing it. It applies to nobody. You're just making it up if you say it. See what I'm saying? Then, not only are statutes construed strictly, but I can show you they're construed strictly against government. And then I can show you they're construed strictly in favor of the accused. And what I thought of putting above this is just kind of simply saying, well, this isn't supposed to be going. This is wrong. This is fraud to the nth degree. It's supposed to be saying who it applies to, and it would be very easily to just write it in the statute. All you'd have talking is a couple extra words, see? But it's treachery, and deeper than that is in the treachery, of course, it's fraud, it's obstruction of justice, and it's crime to the nth degree. And then you show all the members of the bar. Who are all the members of the bar? Attorneys generals and their deputies, right? All the Supreme Court justices, all the judges, all the prosecutors, and all the defense counsel. Basically, this case, Harris versus State, was 1969. They're citing the Supreme Court of the United States, and I think that case was 1950. So for 70 years, they let the treachery rip, the crime, injustice, and fraud, just the lawyers just let it rip on the people. Crime to the nth degree, especially when you're dealing with someone that hurt nobody, like I would say, like in Schaefer's case. I didn't see all his details, but just the little bit I know, you know. And then they're all in it. They're all shutting their mouth about it, and including the judges. They're all deemed to know it, and they just let her rip. Now Schaefer's had to suffer the consequences.
Oh, he didn't hurt anyone. He didn't even cause a paper cut that I know of, and I did a lot of his paperwork. He didn't hurt anybody. In fact, he was between the two of you. Really, you guys were exposing this.
Yeah, he said that case right in his Fairbanks case on the misdemeanor where he didn't say he had a firearm on him.
Well, the cop came up behind him. He didn't see him and accosted him behind. Yeah.
And that one, they videoed it, and I'm standing right behind him in court, and he's citing Harris versus State, the treachery that they conceal what persons are included. And like I said, the only problem is he did not tell everybody why any of this stuff mattered. See, like when that statute does it, what it's supposed to be, they're supposed to strike it down. It's void for vagueness. Says no law. That ain't the way the law is supposed to be. At all.
So when you said, we need a workshop or something.
Yeah. And you need to see the case law so you see it, because when I just tell you, see what I mean? That's one of the lowest degree of believabilities. What I see people, when I bring them right on the court system homepage, especially on their own computer, and they're pulling this up for themselves, you can just see their attitude like, this got to be true. Look, it's coming right from them, right from the court system, right on their homepage. See?
Yeah, they're going after the just like the OCS issue. They go after the people that are least able to defend themselves and their family, and they just want to go after people who are completely ignorant and devoid of just competence in this. And it's not hard to be.
Yeah, I call it the ignorance of the law is the disease that afflicts us, and then corruption is the disease that afflicts the servants. Because, like for an example, wouldn't you think the Supreme Court of Alaska knows how all this stuff works better than anybody, and they're not screaming bloody murder? What the hell do you people think you're doing to the people?
Yeah.
Committing crimes on them?
Well,
and the judge is just letting everybody say they're a citizen of the United States for the jury pool, when probably hardly any of them are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's right on the jury questionnaire if you look at it.
Well, I think once you realize that they're willing to take children and sell them on the open market, you realize that these people are operating in some other way, some other dimension we don't understand.
We do. It's called satanic. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And they've overthrown our form of government.
Absolutely, it's overthrown. They just call it privatization because unless you're smart enough, you think, oh, well, that's just the way it is. I guess, yeah, that's good. And you know what their whole scheme on privatization is to save money. And then look how we're trillions in debt now.
The really strange thing
that's why they did privatization of government was to save money. That'd be cheaper, competitive, and oh my God.
But the interesting thing, Dave, when you look at these people, they still want to save face in public. They still want to save face. They still want to have a status. Mm-hmm. It's as if they have a completely divided mind, and that the evil that they're doing, they make it so small, they minimize it, and their public image they maximize in their own minds. Mm-hmm. You know,
well, some of the labels I use is independent. I don't go the same thing. One's anti-American because that's only the kind of person to do this stuff, and of course, satanic is too strong for most people. If you check in on definition of sociopaths, when I read that, I couldn't believe oh my God, it fits these judges to a degree. And traitor is another one. That's what traitors do, is betray you, and that's exactly what they're doing. And then they're engaged in crime. That's undeniable where they're denying your rights. So now let's just, for the heck of it, just briefly show you what they're doing is violating not only our rights, like right to justice according to law and free of fraud, which is their primary function, is our right to be let alone. So the language on that, and there's 4 aspects to the right and right to be let alone. It's called our most sacred right. It's our right most carefully guarded by the common law. It's the most comprehensive right, and therefore it's the right most valued by civilized men, which makes sense, if it's your most sacred right and everything, and most comprehensive. Is that all making sense to you?
Absolutely.
And this is the court saying that. So what it is, it says no right is held more sacred or carefully guarded by the common law than the right of every individual to the possession and control of his own person, free from all restraint or interference of others, unless by clear and unquestionable authority of law. That's your right to be let alone. So they can't, not only can they not make it clear, but they can't make it unquestionable. That's where my expertise comes in, to destroy them. And with that, I'd be saying, number one, you're all outside the law. There's even case law on it. And then if you understand the NAICS stuff, do you understand that?
Is that just that they're private and they're listed on the stock exchange and stuff, or?
Nope. That's just your regular old business licensing. So if you wanted to go into some kind of business in the state, you go on their Department of Commerce, and when you fill out an application, they have a pamphlet, but there's actually the whole website on it. NAICS means the North American Industry Classification System. And if you go in the book, it shows it on the website, and you go in there, what you want to do is go to the very end section, which is called Public Administration, and most people would stop before they get before they get there, because they're engaged in another kind of business, and you'd find it before you get to the end section. But everything is under there. Courts, police protection, CIA, everything's under there. And I even had the gal admit it. She showed me the book. She didn't like what was going on. She didn't get real derogatory because she works there. But she said, she says, everything's federal. And I said, well, of course it is. State of Alaska is a federal corporation. And she says, that's cool. She meant that was cool that I knew it, because most people don't. And I said, no, that's ugly. And she goes, yeah, you're right. But anyways, under there, you'll see all these federal positions. And then another way to prove it is with the FEINs, which is synonymous with the EIN, Employer Identification Number.
Yeah.
The FEIN is federal. They don't want to leave the F off so it's just one one little step closer to demonstrating they're all federal. Like the
Where did
federal
you say?
taxpayer.
Where did you say you found the information on NAICS? What office were you in? Where you asked
That's
for
in
the
the
book?
Department of Commerce and Economic Development under business licensing.
Okay. So did you go into an office somewhere? What office did you
Yeah, that
go?
was in Anchorage at the 8th Street on, I can't think of the guy's name, right, Atwood Building.
Just like a state building?
Yep.
The state?
Well, it's just a regular building, and it's got quite a few state offices in it. Governor's office used to be in there and whatnot. But anyways, you're just looking under 9200 public administration, and who knows how many of these guys have those licenses. I never did take the time because it gets so comprehensive. And I did have the head lady there said there was a lot of rogue corporations out there, and I took that to mean corporations that exist but they can't be proven that they lawfully exist. Just like the court system, you know. I got the Dun and Bradstreet report, but if you bring that up to them, shows it's a for-profit corporation. Oh, well, that's just a private company saying that. You know, it's like you trying to get to the truth to prove it. So you're after proof, not say so. I don't want to hear no lips flapping in the wind. I want proof.
So
and
you're saying
fraud.
if you bring the Alaska court system Dun and Bradstreet number, they'll just say that's a rogue corporation?
No, I'm just saying that the head lady in Anchorage at the Department of Commerce said there's, on her own accord, I was trying to get at where's the court system created after I got Murkowski to admit it, you know?
Oh, okay.
And she says, I don't know. She said there's a lot of rogue corporations out there, whatever that meant. So I just took it, what we call it, pretended. They just made it up. I don't know. Then the other thing is that FEIN, if you go on the IRS website, the application they're supposed to use to get a FEIN is called SS4. So you can look at it and you can see it's the same one the churches use and everything, and the governments are right under there, and that's for business. You'll find their stuff is for business, and it's on the state website. It's for businesses. And like I have the state of Alaska's FEIN. I have the troopers, but not from something I can absolutely rely on. It's called the Fraternal Order of the Alaska State Troopers. But I know, have you ever heard of Rod Class?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, he supposedly has had 3, maybe their administrative hearings, and they admitted it's his cops are all private businesses. But if you go after all this, that's what's going on. Everything's federal. It's all coming out of the District of Columbia. That's the city of a nation. And that's where it all funnels into, whether it's IRS or the commerce stuff, all funnels back down through there. And it's a city, see? And a city is not the state, so it can't actually make the law. It's supposed to only be able to do ordinances or bylaws, see what I'm saying? And so they're just contracting with everybody. So it's really good to know, and then starting to become experts. How can we expose this in court where we don't sound like raving lunatics and we know it so well and we get it on video to show people, you know what I'm saying, how they respond and what's going on? Say you're all private authority. You're all federal taxpayers. That's private federal businesses. Are you denying your federal taxpayers? And where's your proof of what you are? I mean proof. Clear and unquestionable authority law, so that if I'm sitting here with a gun in my head, I can bank on what I'm dealing with instead of turn into this fraud scam where it all turns into smoke and nothing is proved. And I believe it wouldn't be that way if everything was lawful. I mean, they're committing crimes on us, and treason, sedition, insurrection, rebellion. See? So they don't want to let the cat out of the bag. They don't want to admit to anything. So you admit one thing, the next thing you're off is the next thing, until you got everything proven. See? So you know how to get to the pinnacles, and they go silent. That's what I've seen, or they'll get up and leave the bench, or they get mad, and you didn't do anything wrong, you know, because you're being cool. You're just asking questions or asserting it. So that's the big thing to hinge on, is that's what you're doing. You're engaged in crime, not justice.
What do we need to do, Dave? I mean, what what do we got to do?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of the big question. What I do is, just try to get court cases dismissed, but I'm tired of playing this turtle game. I want to get more out to people and see if something can be done. One of the things is getting it video wherever we can, and or at minimum audioed. See how audio in a sense doesn't, I suppose even video in a sense doesn't really prove anything. But it's like where they're calling the governor's office. I know that isn't anything that's going to necessarily get us someplace, but it shows proof where we're calling, who we're talking to, what the date is, and just say, hey, we're objecting and you're committing crimes. So we're going on the offensive of them committing crimes on us. They're doing the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing and saying why, how you're pretending we're not the people, and then you're violating our rights, the exact opposite of what your oath is for, which is to the people to obey our law. And what's going to be done about this?
Why don't we do a claim? Why don't we do something similar to a class action lawsuit, but make it a claim?
Yeah, it's possible, but what I'm saying, too, is to get a video and try to get some of it out on Facebook to try to show people what's going on down there so more people know about it. It's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. And as long as we're cool and keep it simple, the simple thing is this personal jurisdiction. Who does your crap apply to? And then you're outside the law, because the kind of law, what's the kind of law that they're supposed to be in?
What's the kind?
Yeah.
Common law.
Under the Constitution, there, other than Louisiana. I mean, I can show you the Supreme Court of Alaska saying that's the basis of their system, and it's right in the statutes. Well, that's the lex non scripta.
Yeah, it's land jurisdiction. That's what we're trying to teach people, that if you're gonna restore this, you better get back on the land, get out of commerce.
Common law of the land, and then it's still in the Constitution. The warrant clause and due process law clause; those are criminal provisions. 4th, 5th, and 6th; those are all criminal provisions. And I got the case law, and I even have the Supreme Court of the United States. So you have criminal and you have civil. Criminal is violation of public rights, and civil is violation of private rights. See what I'm saying? And in private rights, they can't enforce one against the other. It can only be a due process of law. So what they try to do is get you to consent, and then they try to hold the dummy in contempt once you supposedly agreed to it. See what I'm saying? That's what they're doing. So you see how the civil is separated from the criminal. And the simple thing, would it make sense to you if I say, how could somebody in government have lawful jurisdiction over you if they cannot lawfully force you physically to do something or to not do something? Would that make sense to you? Yeah, they couldn't have jurisdiction if they can't force me lawfully, use physical force to make me do or not do something, right?
Yeah.
So that's your warrant clause on your seizure or search, see? And that's for crime. So it actually goes the way the Supreme Court of the United States says it. Sovereignty is, of course, not subject to the law, for it's the author and source of law. Then they go on how say it's in us, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. See? And how you prove sovereign immunity exists is like this, that the sovereign isn't subject to law is by sovereign immunity. And one of the best cases, if people want to kind of get a little feel for all this, one of the best cases to read that I've seen is Alden versus the State of Maine, Supreme Court of the United States in 1999. And they were citing Chisholm v. Georgia.
Yeah.
That's maybe the best one, but that was overturned by the people. And just for an example, like one of the things that it says in Alden versus Maine is, one, all jurisdiction implies superiority. And the just powers of government, it says in this nation, each sovereign governs only by consent. And then they also talking about when Chisholm v. Georgia, which is by the Supreme Court of the United States, got overturned by the people, and they say it's where the ultimate sovereignty of the whole country. superior to all legislatures and all courts actually reverse the decision of the Supreme Court. So when you're superior to all courts and all legislature, that means superior to all laws, all legislation, and all court jurisdiction. As one of we the people, we're equals. So who's my superior, and how can you prove that? Aren't you all servants? On what principle of law can the servant rule the master? And my favorite saying on the other side of these guys is like Economo versus Butts, Supreme Court of the United States. Very simple, short, sweet sentence. All the officers of the government, let me say that again, all the officers of the government, from the highest to the lowest, are creatures of the law, and bound to obey it. They're just filling the positions. So, and I already have, as a matter of fact, the city of Fairbanks case, Ninth Circuit, citing the Supreme Court of the United States, and they said, or as simply said by Justice Brewer, who's of the Supreme Court of the United States, or was, the creature cannot rule the creator. But the simple phrase is all jurisdiction implies superiority, all. And I have a huge list.
Yeah, that's a good one. Say that one again. Say that one again. The creature cannot rule the creator, right?
Yep. See, what that amounts to is the inferior can't rule the superior. It's the superior rules the inferior, and that's universal.
Yeah.
And all the sovereigns did that so they couldn't be ousted with law, come up with some scheme and dethrone them. And that's the other thing. It's a political question. If they were come in and try to decide you're not one of the people, I can show you the Supreme Court of the United States saying that if the people ever made judges the arbiters of political questions, they could or would, I can't remember what they said, would dethrone themselves. Because they could go, oh, yeah, you're not one of we the people. See what I'm saying? And they're just creatures of law. They're just supposed to be looking at the law and saying what the law is, not this. Like I can show you from the Ninth Circuit, just one little thing, kind of going off side here, but people are so under delusion of how all this stuff works. They said the discretion of a judge is the law of tyrants. Their only discretion is what does the law say? That's what they're supposed to be doing. What does the law say? What's the true interpretation of the law? And according to the true intent of the people. We don't even possess such power. We only commanded justice according to the law via the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, for an example. Does that make sense? We didn't empower them to do injustice. Injustice is crime. They're violating rights, right? It's crime.
Well, that used to be obvious. That used to be obvious when there was absolute truth.
Well, it's still there. It's just you got to know it well enough. And then, of course, these guys are the biggest problem we have. The people are under such strong delusion of believing the lie that unless you know what the right things to say and kind of demonstrate right off the get-go that you do realize I didn't injure anybody here, and they're saying I've violated some statute. But I just, yes or no, I injured somebody, yes or no. And you do understand these people in government are just the servants. And then I think one thing that really helps, I thought it was too arrogant because I started what's called We Are the Law School. And I'm thinking about switching it over to, like, we the people, we are the state. You would think people would think that's pretty powerful if you can prove we're the state, and then actually when you can say, it's just our mere creature. That's an artificial creature, the state. That's not a natural person. That's just the true name, the legal name, formal name of the people united through the Constitution. In other words, the state doesn't really come into existence until the people have adopted the Constitution. Then it becomes law, and then the state becomes the state. Because before that, you're not organized. You're just the people.
Yep.
So what it should say up here in a criminal case, no fraud going on, it would be called the State of Alaska in proper English grammar. Capital T on the, and then lowercase, then capital S on state, lowercase, lowercase of, and then capital A, Alaska, and the rest lowercase. And so this other one, by virtue of the government forms and applications, State of Alaska, that's composed of citizens of the United States. It's just a fraud going on. but everybody's signing up to be a citizen of the United States. And you'll see that's one of the things Schaefer said in his court case is the only definition of what a state is in your statutes is a federal public corporation in a foreign trade zone, and that's the same thing with what it is under the United States Code or the Code of Federal Regulations. It's a public corporation in a foreign trade zone, and a public corporation is a creature of the legislature. See what I'm saying? So it's just a subdivision of the...
No, explain that part a little bit better. A public corporation in a foreign trade zone.
That's just what they did. It's under the Foreign Trade Zone Act, and I don't exactly know the whole gist of why they did that. A foreign trade zone is a place in the United States but treated as though it's outside of the United States. So I kind of call it the Twilight Zone. You know, you're here but you're outside of it. Their whole jurisdiction, though, like I said, is out of the jurisdiction of any particular state from the beginning to date. Because the state, the people are the sovereign with our borders, right? The peoples of Alaska, their jurisdiction doesn't extend into Canada or the moon or Russia. If it was all lawful, it's within the borders of Alaska. So, like, if you go to Minnesota, and then you got neighboring Wisconsin and North Dakota, South Dakota, the people of Minnesota, their jurisdiction is within their boundaries. It doesn't go into Wisconsin or North Dakota and vice versa. So most of the Fed jurisdiction was for external purposes. What they basically are saying, it would be unsuitable for any one state to have those powers, like to declare the whole country, to declare war. Like we're going to war, and New York declares war, and the whole country's got to go to war because New York said we're going to war. So that's why they had the Congress from every state to go in and vote on this. You know, it's kind of the best they could do. But anyways, the simple thing is this: who does your statute apply to? Because you've got three things going. What is your true birthright status? And then who does the statute apply to? And then, of course, government on any charge has written this on the paperwork, whether it's just you as the defendant or their charge, and that's what you're looking for is the proof. Who does this thing apply to, and where's your proof of what I am? Because I'm charging fraud here. You guys are engaged in fraud, and it's biblical. Out of Luke 11:52, woe unto ye lawyers, you take away the key of knowledge. Because then if you take away all that, then they can just pretend, because most people are brain dead to the law, they can just pretend, oh, you're a raving lunatic. Everybody knows the law applies to you. Instead of realizing, wait a minute, supreme law of the land's our mere creature. Do you guys understand that, where the Constitution is created by the people, so we're the creators, it is our creature, so that's a creature of us. And then the legislature, executive, judiciary are written on it. Those are our creatures. They're called departments. Pull everybody out of government. It can't do anything. And even the state, like I can show you, they're saying, let the state be subordinate to the people, but let everything else be subordinate to the state. All you got to do is understand that state is an artificial creature. That's called a body politic. That's the true formal name of we the people united by and through the Constitution. See? So that should be huge.
I think we understand. I think we all understand that.
Well, that's how they're getting us, though, by duping. Most people think the servants in government are the state and they're the government. And how dare you? I mean,
well,
it's so nuts. I mean,
it's named. It's got a deceptively similar name. You know, state of Alaska sure sounds like that's the state, and everybody calls it, the state. When they're complaining, they say the state did this and the state did that, and they just mean these people posing as our government.
Well, that's because you got, the two states. That's what Schaefer cited too in his case. Got two governments, one in the Constitution, one outside the Constitution. So they're in the federal business deceptively called state. But technically, the state means the people compose the state. See? So that's how you got to, and you got to try to do it where people understand and you don't lose them. So my recommendation is a pictorial and then describe it.
And then we need to...
like a picture says 1,000 words, like that vertical line, and then write all the stuff in. And I've actually made out a couple of those, but they're just on paper. They're on colored paper. But I thought if you get somebody who's a really good graphic artist and make this thing that just looks cool to look at it, much less what it's proving, just to make it better, and then you blow it up big instead of just 8.5 by 11, it just looks really cool, just like a billboard. It looks way better than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. See what I'm saying? And you bring that into court and show the order of things, and then what they're doing is pretending we're not the people, and the people don't understand that, what the fraud scam they've been doing to control us, even though we don't hurt nobody. Just get that. You understand, I didn't hurt nobody. I mean, this is all crime, not justice. But unless you can convey that to people where they get it, they're just, they're going to do the old deer in the headlights, and we don't get it, But I think it's pretty simple.
Well, I think people understand when you explain all of it, when you go through that same line of logic you went through tonight. And I just feel like you should. I mean, are you doing any teaching, like just on video, just telling people about it and getting it out there on, wherever you can put it, BitChute or somewhere, and just training people?
Well, I want to do that. I've done seminars in the past, and
yeah.
We did a big one. Did you go to the one in Fairbanks that we did when Schaefer was around?
Oh, yeah. Yep, at Carlson.
I know so much more since then. You know what I mean? It almost doesn't make that look like a joke. It was pretty good, but it's like anything. The more you study it, and that's what I focus on, is how can I open the minds of the people so they get it? Because they'll say, oh, I get it, I see it, yep.
Well, it's understandable, and you go through all of it, but it's different being able to internalize it. You've got to be able to write out these. What do you call it when it's just like you did in your book, all of the just concise what this case means, and like an extract or I'm not sure what word I'm thinking of, but just like a snippet that tells what the case is for and what the upshot of the case is, and
well,
to be able
I
to
put a headline on them. I called it a headline. Just kind of what I'm looking for. But to be able to stand up for yourself and be able to express what you're expressing. If you get into a place where you have to go into a court, I mean, that's one thing. Yeah, I want to get it on a video, and what I want to do is try to do as much as I can right on the court system homepage to show people where I'm getting it. And the man above, I believe, he's been telling me several times, and it's not that I disagree, but he keeps telling me to do all this by and through fraud, that people would get the concept of we're being defrauded rather than we're being, trying to teach the law thing. There's like, people are weird, a lot of people are weird about the law. And then it sounds so reverse, like, how can this be? This can't be true. It's like if they don't investigate it themselves and enough to get through the delusion, and typically you don't do it with just one court case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're so into delusion. I mean, I even suffer from that to a degree. I'm pretty much out of it, but I remember through the years, it's just, I read stuff and then you're just falling back into this delusion because you've been feeling like a slave your whole life, and then everybody gives you such weird, when you're telling them, they just think you're crazy because they haven't studied any of that, and everybody knows better than that.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, when you
it's opposite.
You come to the realization, you come to the truth and the realization, but then you still have the tendency to go back to your thinking before you came to that realization because of what society does to you. They, like you said, they look at you like you're nuts. They minimize you. They
That's because they haven't studied it. See what I'm saying? And you can't get inflammatory because, I mean, if people didn't get inflamed and they do, that'd be saying in court, I don't consent to be tried by these people. They're brain dead to the law, basically. Is there anybody here that's not essentially totally ignorant of the law? It's like, you want me to go have brain surgery and then nobody in the hospital knows anything about medical stuff?
It's getting that way. It's getting that way. It's just like take anybody off the street and they'll put you in a room and tell you had COVID and sayonara. That's the end of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't,
I don't know what to do other than start proving it of what's going on. And some of those documents, did you see the post I did on the Public Open Meetings Act?
I don't go on Facebook. Was it on Facebook?
Yeah. Like I've just been starting to do a couple. I put on our Constitution, the Coghill thing, where he says, please read it and understand its continuing dedication to you as the governor, not the governed, and just explain it out. And then I did the Open Meetings Act because I think there's 5 Supreme Court of Alaska cases on it, and of course the legislature made the act, and then it's got Dunleavy's letterhead on it.
Are you talking, like, are you on a video or is it just a post?
No, it's just a screenshot. I took a picture of it. Mm-hmm. You can pull it. You can do a screenshot of it right on the governor's webpage or whatever. Like do the Open Meetings Act, Dunleavy, until you actually see it, and it says the state of Alaska on top and Dunleavy governor, and then it starts citing the act. And then what I did is I highlighted 3 lines there because right in the middle of the 3 lines that I thought were important. One says, the people do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies that serve them. And the next line talks about the public servants. They don't have the right to, whatever it says, control what the people know or need to know or something like that. And then the next sentence says for the people to maintain control over the government they created. So there's a lot of stuff to show, just like, hey, we're everybody knows like governments of the people, so that's another one, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Well, all jurisdiction implies superiority. We're not of government, government's of us.
Yep.
And so then it's shown created, well, we're the creators, then government's the creature. See, so it's right there as a confession, so the governor knows it, his letterhead's right on it, and the legislature knew it because they made the act. They're laughing at us. Like they know, it's like we don't know. So to me, that's real powerful to show that, and it's, of course, the same way in every state. I first found that act from California, and I checked up here. And then when Palin was governor, I kind of wanted to go get the actual certified copy of it. They did like a resolution or something and voted like however many's in the legislature, like all of them to 0, I think, that state retains its sovereignty, then just need to show that we're the state,
Yep.
So since I did my book, I did a lot more massive stuff on sovereignty, for an example, and started putting it all together because there's some kind of neat sayings. But the simple thing is if you were to be charged, or I don't care, getting the driver's license, where's the proof of what that person is? By clear and unquestionable authority law, so I can bank my life on it. That's what you're doing. See what I'm saying? And I'm charging fraud if you do it without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. That's what they got to do, is avoid it, right? Evade it. We ain't going there. Takes the whole system down. So that's our big remedy. Who does your crap apply to, pretending it's even lawful to begin with? You're not all just private authority doing counterfeit acts. It's just like counterfeit money. That's what they're doing with the statutes. And, of course, they don't want to admit none of it. That's the scam. Never admit the scam. Never confess that you did it. Just start name-calling. You're the wacko. You're the crazy person.
Yeah, they're the ones running.
They're the ones running the Inquisition, not you. They're not, they want you to confess.
and they're not going to confess. That's their job, get you to agree and confess. And
that's what you can just keep saying. This is all fraud. So that's one thing that I want to ask the court, see if they'll answer, is in this court, anything substantial that's fraud, is that void whatever it is? What's the effects of fraud in this court, and what's the scope of it? Because what I understand, for example, Supreme Court of the United States, government's power to protect people from fraud has always been recognized in this country and is firmly established. And it's right under Civil Rule 60B, state and federal, relief from judgments, orders, and proceedings. And it's right in there is fraud. And then what I've seen what fraud equates to is any trick that mankind can devise to deprive somebody of something. How it's supposed to be is when you're done, you go, no, that's exactly what I intended to do. Not like, what the heck happened? You know.
We hear from a lot of people that you shouldn't go in, you know, because they do presume that they have jurisdiction if you're there.
Nope. You just got to know what to do when you go in, and you got to be very careful. I mean, you need to be trained up. You can't go in there as a white belt.
Yeah.
Karate. Mm-hmm. You can't go in as a white belt. You got to know enough. So just so you know, you got to know that there's something wrong. Like, you're not even thinking. Like, I ain't even wishing for justice. I'm hoping for it, but I believe it won't happen unless I play my chess game perfect. So
now,
what
about special appearance and demure?
Forget all that, as far as I'm concerned. Here's what I go by. First of all, Schaefer did this in his, but he didn't follow it all the way through. Is like, if it was me and I'm one of these people, I'm invoking sovereign immunity, regardless what they say. Then the first thing you want to say after that is, I'm here under threat, duress, and coercion. That takes the voluntary appearance away, because that's how they're styling it. If you voluntarily appear, you waive it. So when you're there under threat, duress, and coercion, you can even say, am I free to go? That's one they won't answer. Or sometimes maybe they would even say, because I think we only tried it twice. Once the judge wouldn't answer, and I think the other time he said no, but they didn't get into a debate, because usually the rookies aren't that skilled to know how to really press the issue, you know. And then you got the right to remain silent, and then with you got to know, the first thing they want to know is your name, and they're skipping the status. See what I'm saying? So they want your name and your birth date, and they say, are you Mr. So-and-so? And you can say, I'm here in regard to that matter. And then what I have them throw in is, one, you got the right to remain silent, because you know that's under the constitutions, and it's in their court rules, and then they even play a video on it. So you can say, do I have the right to remain silent? And then you just say, I understand that's got a vastly inferior status attached to it, deceptively called a person. See, we just got to know the truth, how it works, and then try to calculate the best way to handle it. A lot of guys will say, oh, that's not me. And then they'll put out a bench warrant on you. So then the other just little part to that is when they say you got a right to remain silent, yes. Okay, well, where's the law say I got a right to remain silent, but I got to give you my name? Then that freaks them out, because they're only taken so far, too. They're only taught just so much, because most people don't take it that deep, you know. Most people just are sheep and just go along with the program, basically. So, and then you say, I waive nothing, and I consent to nothing, and I'm objecting to all of this, and I don't understand any of it. This your outside the law language.
It's true.
It causes a major problem.
Check all of it, and I don't understand any of it. That's the truth.
Outside the law language.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect.
And then it really helps. What we should do, if we can do it, it's hard to do, but get a big group together so that when you go to court, especially before a jury, so you can say, hey, look at that. I got about 100 people in this courtroom that all understand what I'm saying is the truth.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Because if you're the Lone Ranger and you got a bunch of brain-dead jurors, they just, this guy's a raving lunatic. Everybody knows better than that.
Yeah, we were, in mine, it was 18 months. I'd go every month. I was in court every month for 18 months on an arrest for an expired license plate.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I didn't have a driver's license and didn't give it and didn't agree. So they pulled me out of the car, and then they went through all my stuff. Went through my wallet,
Illegal
my
search.
purse. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so 18.
You got to know how to deal with all that, and I think that's the other thing we got to do without being too crazy is just being the legend. I deny you can get a fair trial here. You guys don't ascertain the truth. Once I hit the pinnacle questions, you guys are going to go sideways on me and not ascertain the truth, so you're engaged in crime, not justice. So only a lunatic would consent to be tried by something like this. But the simple thing I really believe on that, besides the personal, who's the crap applied to and what you saying I am, where's the proof that I'm that, is the fraud thing. I think people can relate to fraud a whole lot better than the law. I'm just saying, I didn't hurt nobody here, and this is all a fraud scam. Like it was shown to you. You don't want to be like the Lone Ranger and you're just trying to get out of something. Like
right.
You need a good title for, like, I want to do a brief on it and or movie. And so that kind of captures the whole essence of it. And this wouldn't be it, but just like, have you ever read the book or seen the little movie, how the judges and prosecutors constantly commit crimes against the people and the people are brain dead to it? Something like that.
That'd be great.
And then you just cite it. You can't just say stuff that's a conclusory statement, like you say, you're a liar. No, you got to say why you're a liar and demonstrate it. And then you got to say stuff that you can't be flawed on, and even though it's huge, you could make it sound simple. Like, for a simple example, where's your absolute proof that I can bank my life on who this statute applies to, that person? And you already know the answer, right? It's treachery. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you probably see, maybe grasp why they start to go silent or get up and leave the bench, because they don't know how to address these really pinnacle issues when you keep them as narrow, sweet, short, and simple as possible and hit them with the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's what takes the experience and the skill to do, though, is to figure out what the right thing is in the particular situation,
Yeah. Well, that doesn't take that long, though, just because what I do is just a little cheat sheet on what to say when you get in there on first appearance, if you will. I'm here in threat, duress, and coercion. I waive nothing, I consent to nothing, I'm objecting to all this, and I invoke sovereign immunity. I don't understand you're outside the law language, and I'm speaking to the record, so they can't pretend that you're insulting the judge somehow, which is a fluke. I've never had any of my guys go to jail for any of that, like contempt or even failure to appear, if you know how to address it right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just understanding it, and then you just keep just like how your demeanor is every time I hear you, just keep your demeanor. Just cool. You're just beating them up with the truth. You're not arrogant. You're not cocky. You're just trying to ascertain the truth and hold them to it. Causes them big problems.
What is it your governors can do? How is it that we have come to thinking and believing that anyone has more to say than you? Stand up, sing your song. Let us know the wisdom of your heart, that you belong, that we belong to you, that you belong to us, and that our love is all untrue. first step and commit to take a chance. Believe, just relax, 'cause no one ever died of trying to take the music back. Just leave it to them others to excuse. Well, state your heart, be yourself. Oh, help us understand it's you and everybody else. I'll take a breath and I'll see it through. You know that I am more myself when I'm standing up for you. How is it that we don't see the pain which we exchange for circumstance made easy to believe in, where everybody's loss becomes a gain? Come forth, reach out your hand, be your brother's keeper this one time. Say he belongs, say we belong to him, that he belongs to us and that our love is all and true.